Hello, everyone. This is Greg Aden with Aden Leadership. And again, I have what I believe is going to be one of the more interesting interviews I've had in a long time. One, I know this gentleman very well. I know his heart. I know his soul. Unfortunately, I know what's in his head sometimes too. But this is Chad Jamison, also known as Producer Chad. He has a show called Truth Talks. And Chad, good to see you. And how are you today?
I'm great, Greg. Good to see you too as well.
So when we were connecting a couple weeks ago, you were well, actually a month or so ago. And by the way, Chad produces my Servant Leadership podcast. He does a fantastic job. So if you like the quality, it's all because of him. And if you don't, blame me. But he's out there, and he said, "Greg, I'm going to be gone for a while. I'm going to take a trip to Africa, and Rwanda, I believe, is the country you were visiting." And he got back and he said, "Greg, I believe there's something here we need to share with the world." So here we are. And Chad, just start out by saying where you were and you know me. What was the why? Why did you
Yeah.
go there?
No, I appreciate the time, Greg, to come on and share my story. I'm usually the one behind the camera, so it's always interesting to be the one in front of the camera. But I did. Back in March, I had the chance to travel with a friend of mine, Jimmy Lakey, and his son, River, and their organization, River's Promise, back to Rwanda. And I actually was there with intention, or with a job, if you will, and that was to document and film and then produce a documentary on the work that they're doing, but more importantly, on River's return back to Rwanda. And just kind of briefly for your audience, River was adopted out of Rwanda by this friend of mine, Jimmy Lakey, when he was 3, brought to America. And as far as we know, he was actually the only Rwandan child adopted out of an orphanage that was not a Catholic orphanage. It was a Presbyterian orphanage there in Kigali, in the capital city. But he was abandoned hours after birth, left to die, and was saved by a family there, put into this orphanage, and then adopted and brought here. So it's a pretty incredible story. He's now 18 years old, getting ready to go to play college football at Lindenwood University. And so it was neat to go back and see his perspective as a young adult now. He hadn't been back since he was in 8th grade. So his perspective was very different about Rwanda and his story and the people that helped him through his journey.
How did you first meet this gentleman, and how did your paths cross?
Well, interestingly enough, I met him at the cigar shop that we hang out at, the Cigar Lounge, and he's a iHeartRadio DJ here in Colorado. And I actually had him on my podcast on Truth Talks to tell his story about River's Promise and how he found River and adopted him and stuff. And then kind of just through that relationship, came up with this idea of, well, why don't we go back to Rwanda and film this? Why don't we document this, for River, but for the whole world to see? And then another part of that was documenting the incredible work that River's Promise is doing in Rwanda to help really some of the poorest people in the world. And I'm talking, these people are so poor, they literally live under banana trees. I mean, they have very little resources available to them. So it was very spiritual, and it was very heart opening to go back and witness this and be a part of it. And then when I got back, we actually my family and I chose to sponsor one of the kids through River's Promise. So we're now giving back. We're now helping a child climb out of the pit of poverty through education, which is what River's Promise is all about.
Beautiful, beautiful. When you were there, Chad, when you first saw this area, what was the first thing that you felt in your heart about what you were looking at?
First of all, Rwanda is probably one of the most beautiful, cleanest areas I've ever been to. It's the only country I've ever been to in Africa, but by far, it's was the cleanest, most beautiful place I've ever been in my life. You know, we landed in Kigali, the capital city. It's a big city, I think 7 million people. It's very poor. Most of these people live in shacks on top of each other. But what really surprised me when we got out to the village where, like I said, these people live under banana trees. I mean, they you know, sometimes they have to walk for miles just to find fresh water and stuff. I mean, it's very, very poor. But the thing that really struck me was how incredibly happy they were. And not only that, but how incredibly thankful they were that we were there. Obviously, through River's Promise, Jimmy has been there many, many times. So he's sort of a celebrity, if you will, when he comes into the village. But what was interesting was when we got to the site of the school, where it's called River's Promise Legacy Christian Academy, and it's just outside of Musambira, which is a small town outside of Kigali. And when we got there, there were women and children dressed in some of the most beautiful dresses, these colorful dresses. These kids were there to greet us. They sang, they danced, they hugged us, they welcomed us in. And we were complete strangers in their world, yet they welcomed us in. And it wasn't a welcome of, you're here to save us. It was a welcome of, we're here to greet you and thank you for what you were doing to help us.
What a contrast. I can't help but immediately go to a contrast on what they would see when they came to one of our humble cities like Denver or Boulder.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't see anything near the humility that you saw there. And not needing to contrast Rwanda and the United States. Clearly they're different. But what were some of the things that you brought back with you? And then I know you, Chad, you and your wife are raising and have been raising wonderful kids. Not perfect, of course, but what are some of the things you shared with your family when you got home?
One of the first things I shared was the love that these people gave, right? And it was just this genuine love that had, there was no strings, no prejudice, no nothing. It was just pure love and appreciation that we were in their village. And that was one of the things that really struck me and I brought back. The other thing that really struck me or really hit me hard, it didn't hit me until I got back, but if you're familiar with the Rwandan genocide that happened in 1994, 1 million people were killed in 90 days. If you watch the movie Hotel Rwanda, you can kind of get an idea of what that was about. Less than 30 years later, though, crime is almost non-existent in Rwanda. They've rebuilt the country completely. But more importantly, they have forgiven those that committed the atrocities against them or their families. And I truly mean they have forgiven them. And that was something that the country, after the genocide, realized they had to do in order to heal and move on. And so that was really, really compelling. And so when I got back, I thought, well, if these people can forgive these people that murdered their family or committed these heinous atrocities against their loved ones, how can I come back then and hold judgment and grudges against people that are very close to me that, maybe have done some things that have hurt us or what have you. And so that was something that was really, really powerful to me that I brought back. And I was actually able to employ that with a close family member that I had some differences with and I had really kind of pushed out of my life. And this is somebody that's really close to me and my wife. And so I immediately reached out to that person. I said, you know what, we need to talk. And I said, I need to forgive you and not judge you for what you did. There's somebody else that will do that. It is not my place. So that was something that I hope my kids really see and understand is look at everybody and accept them for who they are, for all their greatness and for all their faults. And don't judge them. And first of all, you don't know what they might be going through. But second of all, we're all, this trip really elevated my spirituality too. And we don't need to turn this into a sermon, but But it really showed me that our creator is the one that will judge, not me. And we're all his children. And let's just love each other. Let's support and love each other in the best way we can.
Yeah, and yes, let's make it a sermon. Let's make it an opportunity for the viewers and the listeners, Chad, to use this example and at least have it be a filter for a relationship or two. Then, as you mentioned, I have struggled with judgment my entire life. I'm a leadership coach. I preach, I praise humility and empathy. And as you know, I'm suffering a great loss right now, and it's really, really hard for me not to be judgmental and doubting myself, frankly, some other people around me. But back to your scenario is, I believe we have so much anger in our souls that we can't see the light at times. And a lot of it is in our head and some of it's in our heart. And I don't know what you did other than use this experience to let this person go. I don't want to judge you. I don't want to hate you. I don't want to be angry at you anymore for what you did. And no matter what he or she or they do to us, what is anger and hatred and judgment going to change? And the answer is nothing.
Mm-mm.
Yes, you can sit there. And I just had this conversation yesterday with Tammy, my wife. Greg, what are you expecting them to do? Pick up the phone and say they're sorry? Come over here and this is not about Sam. This is about something entirely different.
Yeah.
And what are you expecting them to do? Come and find you and say you're sorry? You're the bigger person here. And as long as you hang on to this, it's just going to weigh you down. And wherever they are, they're laughing at you, saying,
Yeah.
I'm in their head, I'm in their heart. And so I guess let's pretend that you have I don't know, 199 people, and they're all 12 to 16-year-olds. What would you tell them about your experience so that they can immediately make a difference in someone else's life, and perhaps theirs or their family member?
It's a great question, and I know it's one that you've asked many times on this show to different guests, and I love all the different answers that people give. For me, I would tell that group of young individuals, young humans, that leadership is not just in the boardroom, right? Leadership is not just adults leading children. It's not adults, managing other people in a professional way. It's leadership can be so many different things, and what it can be is you can come back from a trip like this, and you can help lead by example other people by sharing your story and saying, look, you can make a difference in another person's life. And that difference can be through, getting involved with a nonprofit and helping them, making sure that what they do aligns with how you feel and the passions that you have. But get involved, because you can make a difference. And I think that's probably the biggest thing I would tell that group is, you can be a leader without a formal title, without a boardroom or a fancy office. Just go out and lead people into the things that you're passionate about, and hopefully they follow you, and then they support it. And now you're making your little change is now becoming a big change, right? You're making a huge impact in the world.
Yeah, and I love the little change. Tammy and I talk a lot about just doing the little things, and doing the little things over and over. A, they become habits. B, they become easy, and they become part of your cloth. You're a human person. But the thing that you said, and I believe others will latch onto, is others will then possibly change their behaviors. Now, it starts with beliefs, but we're really talking about behaviors. And if your child starts to show up more as a leader, a kind, compassionate human being, others might say, oh, I might try that. And, he's not getting all the attention that he might want, but it's not about seeking attention. It's about taking care of somebody else. And at some point, that will be paid back. But you don't do it, as you and I know, servant leadership. We don't do what you did to get paid back and be recognized. You did what you did because it was in your heart. You wanted to go and find out what's going on out there. And then now you have come back. And I'm sure hundreds of people have either heard your story or read about it or asked you questions. And now they're going, what could I do to get
Right.
involved? What could I do to lead? What could I do to be more curious? And, God bless you, Chad. And I like asking the question, what would you say to a group of people? Because at some point they're there to listen. And if they can take one thing away, not just to be a better leader. And with my own son, Brooks, we're working with him on just being a better student, being a better brother, being a better teammate. And when you are, how do you think that makes everybody else feel? Well, that's an easy question, right?
Right.
But when you're not, how does that make other people feel? Sorrow, sad, irritated, pissed off. They don't want to be around me. They start teasing me. They leave me. So if you want to avoid loss, be kind. I don't know. You have that same audience in front of you, and some little girl is raising their hand in the back and says, Producer Chad, but my dad's not nice to my mom. What do you say to that little girl?
I mean, what can you say? I mean, that's, other than tell her that, that behavior is something that you can get away from as you grow. Don't fall into the trap of that's how I was raised. That's what I know. That's the behavior I'm going to either allow to happen to me, or I'm going to inflict on those around me. Change that cycle, right? Be that change. A good friend of mine, Nate Lofton, who was part of the Harlem Globetrotters, one of the greatest comments he ever or statements he ever made to me was, "Don't make an excuse, make a change." Right? Don't use that toxic relationship that your parents or somebody else might have as an excuse for you to then be toxic. Make a change. Figure out what means the most to you and chase that, right? Go find your dreams. Go chase your dreams.
Well, you've heard me say it a lot of times, and especially with what's happened in my life recently, I realize that we are in desperate need of breaking the chain. And we are in desperate need of parents really becoming different and better parents, and stop excusing themselves with, well, that's what happened in my home. Well, if it wasn't positive, why in the world would you want to repeat it? Because it's easy. That's what I know. Well, learn something else. Yeah. And then look at the little faces and the little hearts in front of you and ask yourself, do they deserve what you deserved? The answer is absolutely not. Right. And I don't know what these parents went through to make them so victim focused. But again, maybe they need to, maybe they just need to realize it's not about them. No. And what I'm hearing, Chad, you say is, if we could get more about how we can help others and not just ourselves, piling up our bank accounts and our big houses and cars, what can we possibly do in 15, 20, 30 minutes a day? You said it, get involved.
Yeah. I think the greatest gift you can leave on this planet is, it's not how much money, how big your house is that you're going to leave to your kids or anything like that. I think it's really how you can impact a life for the positive. And whether that's here at home or abroad, if you can change somebody's life, and I mean, like what River's Promise is doing with these children in Rwanda, helping them get an education. And that's what River's Promise is all about. It is, we actually are building a school. I was there for the ribbon cutting of phase 1. I mean, this school is the only building within miles that has electricity, flushing toilets. Most of these people don't even know what a toilet is, right? So to have that available to them, but more importantly, to have them have the opportunity to get an education, because that is how they climb out of the pit of poverty. That's how they will be able to excel and break that chain of poverty in their own village and family, and be successful. And so if you can do that, I don't believe there's a single greater gift that you could leave behind than to be able to leave this world and go, I changed a life. Even if it's just one life, I changed a life.
Yeah. I know this sounds kind of corny, and back to your spiritual comment, why else are we here? What, and again, judgment or not from above, why else are we here? And if I don't hear to leave it better than it was, to help someone, to help others, I I question you're wasting your time here.
Right. And that's the thing. Oh, I was just going to say, I think we all have something to give, right? Everybody has something to give to help somebody else. If whether it's just telling your story, maybe it's being there as a shoulder or an ear for somebody, or maybe it's traveling halfway around the world and documenting the change that an organization like Rivers Promise is having. I mean, it's, to your point, we all have something to give, right? Figure out what your gift is, figure out what your purpose is, and then just trust in it and follow it. Do it.
Yeah. It's a couple things I want to say then are in my heart right now. And one is, it's impossible to give when you're always taking. And it's hard to be present when you're not present.
Yeah.
And you know me and being present and listening with your eyes too. The listeners probably get tired of me saying it, but the best conversations I've ever had with my kids are the ones where I'm down on one knee and we're having a serious conversation, and they know dad is feeling them. They know dad's listening. Now, I may not agree with all the stuff that's coming out of their mouth, but they
Sure.
know their heart is being heard. And by the way, listeners, education doesn't mean, getting scholarships to universities in the United States of privileged America. We're talking about helping them educate themselves so they can become more powerful and more helpful to others, but first to themselves.
Correct.
Educate, teach, coach, mentor, lead, whatever educate means. And it's not just typical education. There's a lot of really smart kids going to really smart schools and doing really wonderful things. What else do you want to talk about? What about the people that couldn't dream about going to a college, much less a junior college? Could we help more kids get out of high school with purpose instead of, I can't wait to get the hell out of this prison? Right. What are you going to do next? That's education. Let's educate the young minds, because Chad, you're looking at a 60-year-old and I'm probably looking at a, I don't know, 40 something. And we're not going to be the leaders of tomorrow. It's just irrefutable.
Right.
And Tammy and I say, every once in a while, I'm so glad I'm not going to be here in 25 years based on how we drive and how we shoot and how we hate people. It's just ridiculous. But the only thing I can do is continue to say and beg and plead and ask people to be better parents, be better family members, be better leaders. And who did you help today? So wrap us up, Chad. Tell me what you'd like to have others hear, because others will. And what's one reminder that you want our listeners to have as they say goodbye to producer Chad?
First of all, if people would like to check out the documentary, they can go to riverspromise.org. riverspromise.org. On the media page is the full documentary, so they can watch it. It's about 30 minutes. It's not very long. We all have short attention spans. We knew that when we produced it, so we kept it short for you. So, but you'll be able to see Rivers' journey back to Rwanda, his story, and the incredible people in Rwanda that helped him through his story, and also all the great work that's being done over there. So please go check that out.
And you'll also find the link within this podcast as well.
Yeah, we will. We'll make sure that's included in the description below. And then really, I would say find it in your heart to forgive those that maybe you don't agree with, or maybe they've done something wrong. Find that forgiveness in your heart. Find that love for those people, because I think you'll find that your life is so much more fulfilled when it's filled with love and positivity than it is with hate and judgment, for somebody around you. So find that, and then just go out and try to make a difference. Find that organization that you agree with, whether it's a veteran organization or helping, homeless here or whatever it is, food bank, there's so many different ones that need help. Mental health is a big one. If that's what you align with, then, if that's your thing, go do your thing. That's what I would say.
And I would say that I know a lot of people struggle with, well, my $500 isn't going to make a difference, or my $5 is going to make a difference. Hell, picking up trash will make a difference because someone might see you taking care of your own street.
Yeah.
It'll make a difference because it came from you, but don't expect anything in return. Just give.
That's funny you said that, because one of the discussions we had after I got back was, in America, we seem to think the only way to fix something is just to throw tons and tons of money at it. And that usually has quite the opposite effect. It usually doesn't fix anything. It just wastes a bunch of money that probably could help. And what's really cool is if you sponsored a kid through River's Promise for $45 a month, that kid gets health insurance, education, and food, and a clean water filtration system. I mean, $45 a month, and we're able to do that. I mean, this whole thing started with a promise and has grown into this huge thing that's changing lives, really changing an entire country in Rwanda. So don't think that your small donation of 25 or $50 a month does not make a difference. In the right organization, it will absolutely make a difference.
Yeah, and I'd like to point out the difference between a big ass donation and then you're done. I wrote a check. Oh, and I get a tax write-off. It is the consistent doing of little things. We need to add the consistent doing of little things, because if you do something small and then all right, I help somebody, it may make a peanut different, but the consistent giving, I believe, is what Chad's just referencing, doing something on a monthly basis. Yeah, buddy, it's
100%.
Great to see you.
You as well, bud.
I appreciate you reaching out and wanting to share. I've enjoyed this. And ladies and gentlemen, producer Chad of Truth Talks, he and Dr. Mitch do a fantastic job with so many wonderful guests. Check out their show as well, Truth Talks. You can find it all over the place. You'll see it probably on a link below. Right, Chad?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll co-promote this. And again, great to see you. Thank you for what you're doing. And I know you well enough to say this, that I have seen your edge smooth over the time we've known each other, and you've helped me smooth my edge. And God bless you for sticking with me, believing in me. And I know you're looking at a man that believes in you and what you're doing. So
thank you so much, Greg.
Oh, my pleasure. I hope you enjoyed this opportunity to chat with producer Chad of Chad Jamison of Truth Talks. Again, this is Greg Aden, and go out and make a difference, not because you have to, but because you get to. Lead, parent, help somebody. And even if they don't say thank you, please know that it's your decision to help somebody that's going to help that person. You don't need to hear thank you. You don't need to say that was the best speech I ever heard. Just give, and do it consistently. Go out and help somebody. Be kind, be considerate, and remember, love will always trump the other one. Okay. Talk to you soon. See you next time.